As someone who's been in Bitcoin for quite a while now, I can tell you that 2024 was a crazy year in the history of Bitcoin. But 2025 is just around the corner, and I can guarantee you it's going to be just as epic as 2024. So what are the top 10 things that you should keep an eye out for in 2025? In this episode today, I break down the top 10 stories that you need to be paying attention to in 2025 as we continue this epic Bitcoin bull run. I'm Dante Cook, and this is Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. Thing number 10 to be paying attention to as we head into 2025. FASB rules went into effect December 15th of 2024. This means that companies will be able to mark the fair value of their Bitcoin that will positively or negatively impact their earnings statements. Companies like MicroStrategy, who own over 439,000 Bitcoin, and with these new FASB rulings, could be one of the most profitable companies in the world. The crazy thing about this is going to open up doors for MicroStrategy to not just be in the QQQ or the NASDAQ 100, but the S&P 500. MicroStrategy is up over 360% this year to date, and the sky is the limit if they're included in the S&P 500. That's a story that you need to pay attention to. And while we're on Michael Saylor, let's talk about nation-state adoption. It's funny that we're not only talking about corporations like MicroStrategy, but nation-states adopting Bitcoin. The global race for the lead in Bitcoin will be among the United Arab Emirates, China, Russia, and of course, the United States.
And the first nation to print money, the first nation to print their own currency to buy Bitcoin wins. Right? Like, Tom, look what MicroStrategy did. We basically issue our own currency, our stock, and we buy Bitcoin. What happened? We went from $1 billion to $100 billion market cap is what happened. Is it inflation? It's only inflation if you print the currency to invest, to make a bad investment, right? If you print the currency to buy something that's appreciating faster than your inflation rate, it's actually accretion. Right, so the hurdle rate is the 7%, and the problem generally is most governments print the currency to make a poor investment instead of printing the currency to make a good investment, and that's why they can't get out of their hole.
The number of countries anticipated to hold Bitcoin in 2025 is expected to double. And places like El Salvador and Bhutan continue to stack Bitcoin relentlessly, paving the way and providing a vision for other countries to do the same. 2025 is going to be a massive year for nation-state adoption. Number 8, the Trump inauguration and the strategic Bitcoin reserve of the United States.
Hello, Bitcoiners. Thank you very much. Hello, it's good to be with you.
Trump, from the very beginning, promised to make Bitcoin a strategic focus of his campaign if he was elected. Well, we're just 30 days out from him being inaugurated, and it's pretty clear that Trump is continuing to double down on his mission to make the United States the global leader in the Bitcoin and crypto industry.
I will ensure that the future of crypto and the future of Bitcoin will be made in the USA, not driven overseas. I will support the right to self-custody to the nation's 50 million crypto holders. I say this with your vote. I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin. And I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency.
And the most important reason to believe that this isn't just something that Trump is saying from a podium, it's because his entire cabinet and people like his son are voices around him telling them about the strategic importance of why the United States should invest into Bitcoin.
But now more than ever before, now after everything I've witnessed, having maybe the greatest look behind the curtains of anybody on earth into what the systems truly are, how the systems are manipulated, Bitcoin is actually proving to be the greatest complement to the hard assets our family loves so much. You know, just like real estate, obviously Bitcoin's scarce. There's only 21 million. I don't need to tell anybody in this room that. You know, name another commodity that's capped. Name another commodity that as prices go up, it's not further exploited. Guys, if gold ever went to $20,000, You'd be tearing down this building. You'd be looking in the concrete pillars over there. You'd be trying to mine gold. You'd be changing the supply dynamics. With Bitcoin, you can't. With Bitcoin's supply is capped. That scarcity, that hard limit, it makes it incredibly valuable, especially as these assets are being purchased in the billions. That's why you see the price skyrocket the way it is. But unlike real estate, Bitcoin's not tied to geography. It's global. It's instantly liquid.
Which leads me to point number 7. David Sachs, the new crypto czar, and how he's going to usher the United States into great policy to allow Bitcoin and crypto to flourish in the United States. For Bitcoin to thrive, it's not only going to take top-down action, but middle-out action, as great policies will drive more Bitcoin adoption, like removing capital gains tax as a potential example. The venture capitalist David Sachs knows a thing or five about disruptive payment technologies, as he was the former COO and one of the early members of PayPal back in the day. Here's how he describes what Bitcoin means and how Bitcoin security can be used to give normal Americans power that they otherwise wouldn't have.
If you were in China and you had created your wealth in China or many, many other countries all over the world, and there were currency restrictions and controls, and the government was asserting more and more power, and were putting business leaders under house arrest and seeking to put them under their thumb, you'd be trying to convert as much of your net worth into Bitcoin as possible so that if you ever had to flee the country, you wouldn't have to have dollars in your suitcase or gold bricks or diamonds. You'd simply have to have a password in your brain that you could access at any computer terminal when you got out of the country. That sort of digital gold is a phenomenal use case of Bitcoin. And the more oppressive all these countries become, the more they increase the value of that use case.
Having people this knowledgeable about Bitcoin and enacting policy is a complete 180 from the previous administration and people who were openly adverse and hostile towards Bitcoin. And that's going to have a major role in Bitcoin's adoption moving forward. Number 6, what will the Fed do in 2024? The U.S. government is between a rock and a hard place, as debt to GDP is now at 121%. And we're not even in a war right now. Since 2008, GDP has grown $14.6 trillion. The problem is the debt has grown $26 trillion in that same time frame. We continue to run deficits, our debts increase, and our unfunded liabilities continue to balloon out of control, which leaves the Fed with no choice but to make rash and stupid decisions. And as you can see, every time the Fed has to jump in to counteract bad fiscal policy, well, that leads us to recessions. Recessions like 2001, 2008, and 2021. What makes you think that this time is any different? This spells really good things for assets, but really hard times in the real world. If history gives us any indication, it doesn't look like they're going to go back to neutral policy anytime soon, which is pretty good for Bitcoin. Let's take a quick break and shout out our sponsors. With Bitcoin, you don't have to trust third-party custodians to protect your assets. You can remove all counterparty risk and protect your generational wealth by taking self-custody of your Bitcoin. And this is exactly why the Bitcoin Way exists. Members of their team will walk you through proper 100% self-custody, step by step, so you can remove all counterparty risk. Stop sharing your keys with third parties and ensure you protect your generational wealth the right way. Go to thebitcoinway.com and schedule a free 30-minute consultation with their team. Story number 5 that you need to be paying attention to as we head into 2025 as it relates to Bitcoin. The FTX bankruptcy payouts. Remember this thing that blew up the 2021 bull run in Bitcoin? The FTX collapse, which drove the price from 69,000 to 17,000? Well, we're reaching the culmination or the end of that process. All of the fraud, all of the bad actors, and all of the people who ruined the reputation single-handedly of an entire industry. Well, in 60 days, FTX will start to initiate bankruptcy payouts to all of the people that were impacted, to the tune of $16 billion. They'll do this through BitGo and Kraken exchanges. And this is actually massive because this is going to coincide with about a month after Donald Trump being inaugurated. Do you think that all of these funds are going to flow out of the crypto industry, or they're going to flow into other assets like Bitcoin? And sadly, assets like other crypto tokens, which feed the frenzy in these bull markets unlike anything you've ever seen. Which leads me to my 4th point. How big will the crypto or crapto industry get in 2025 in this next bull run? Every cycle, people get tricked into investing their life savings into fart coin or the Hawk-Tua coin, and they get rug pulled. This naturally creates an opportunity for people to understand that Bitcoin is not crypto, but it also creates unnecessary drag on an industry and on an asset in Bitcoin, which is the single true, scarce, and finite crypto asset that you should be considering for your portfolio. Not financial advice, but we've all gone through a phase where we want to invest in a little crypto here and a little crypto there. And finally, we realize that Bitcoin is the only true asset worth looking at. Number 3, institutional adoption of Bitcoin will continue to rise and will actually explode into 2025. Bitwise predicts that ETF flows in 2025 will be much greater than they were in 2024. As a historical corollary, when gold ETFs launched, year 1 flows were 2.6 billion, year 2, 5.5 billion, year 3, 7.6 billion, and by year 6, they ballooned to $28.9 billion. Well, flows for Bitcoin are projected to hit almost 35 billion in year 1, which is more than gold ETF inflows were in year 6. And with this type of demand, you can bet that we're going to start to see more players, the big players, into the market. Players like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, which will drive demand for Bitcoin even higher than it already is. And this leads me to point number 2, a story we should all be watching. Will Bitcoin price performance continue as it has in the past, or will there be diminishing returns? There's a diminishing returns theory out there that says we're going to have less and less explosive movements upward in Bitcoin, but also less and less explosive movements downward. Some people believe that that's a load of crap, and that it's only going to get more explosive from here, as more institutions, nation states, and people pile into Bitcoin. The regular scheduled programming of Bitcoin being up 3 years and down 1 year puts us on track for year 3, which means that we should have another strong year in 2025, to the tune of 50% to 1,000% gains within the realm of possibility. One of my favorite thinkers in the space, Dr. Jeff Ross, believes that we will hit above $450,000 per Bitcoin in Q3 of 2025.
And I'm curious where you came up with the 475,000 target.
I had a couple days where I just spent tons of time looking at past charts and past cycles and things like that. And when I kept coming to around that price target, so 450 to kind of 500,000, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm too low. I could see it actually spiking up, to 700, 800, even $1 million. I could see it tagging $1 million. If it did, I think at that point it will be way too overpriced. This is an easy sign for people that I feel like I wish I could put that. From past experience, I wish I could give this knowledge to new and younger investors. When you see the price of anything hockey sticking and going exponential,
right.
That's
You're
unsustainable.
Close to the end. Yeah,
it's the end. That's the final huge dose of leverage before it crashes. And so I would just beg people to be cautious at that point and don't go all in if Bitcoin hits $1 million or hits 500K, because you're probably going to have a really miserable 2 or 3 years after that if you do that.
Bitcoiners like Samson Mao believe that we're going to hit 1 million next year. I'd be interested to hear what you think. And last but not least, the number 1 story that Bitcoiners and people all over the world are going to be watching for in 2025 is the release of Ross Ulbricht. 70% of the Bitcoin that the U.S. government owns, 144,000 Bitcoin, were seized in 2013 by the FBI from Ross in the Silk Road operation. Ross has been in jail for a decade. And more so than the strategic Bitcoin reserve, people are looking forward to whether Trump will actually uphold his word and pardon Ross the day that he gets into office.
Today, I repeat my pledge to commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht to a sentence of time served. It's enough. It's enough.
Serving in prison for that amount of time for simply trying to promote freedom, economic empowerment, and prosperity for millions and billions of people globally is a really sad story, and one that we believe in Bitcoiners is wrong fundamentally, and why we believe in the power and the freedom that Bitcoin provides. We really hope that they free Ross in 2025. That's the number 1 story. Before we leave, and before you head off to the holidays, let me leave you with an interview that I always go back and watch almost every single year from Bill Miller. Bill Miller was one of the first outside investors in Amazon.com. Bill Miller was laughed at, was called a fool, but just continued to buy and hold Amazon over the years. He's also one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin out there. He gives us a snippet to think about how technology is actually adopted and why Bitcoin is following a similar curve to other major technological innovations in this country.
I mean, what's the intrinsic value of that Mickey Mantle baseball card that sold for $5.5 million? It's just cardboard, and it doesn't even have a legend. It could be counterfeited very easily. Or what's the intrinsic value of a Picasso painting, which is just canvas and paint and maybe a frame? But people will pay millions or tens of millions of dollars for it. And so it comes down at the very basic level for supply and demand. So Bitcoin is the only economic entity where the supply is unaffected by the demand. So even with gold, if gold, which is $1,800 today, if gold goes to $18,000, there will be a lot more gold mined because mines that are unprofitable will become profitable. And so gold, which accretes today, the production of gold is equal to about 1.5% to 2% of the total value per year. That's the same accretion that Bitcoin has currently. But this year, 2022, I think will drop below 1.5% on that. So only 21 million Bitcoin can ever be created or close to it. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin is 100,000 or 20 million, there's only going to be that many of them. So all you have to really believe is that the demand for Bitcoin will grow faster than 1.5%, over the next number of years, and the price inexorably will go up. So I've only recently been allowing myself to be described as a Bitcoin bull. I used to tell people, they say, "Oh, you're a Bitcoin bull. You own a lot of Bitcoin." I'm like, I do own a lot of it, but I'm actually a Bitcoin observer, and I'm observing its trajectory as a new technology and comparing it to the trajectories of things like the printing press, or the steam engine, or the railroads, or the automobile, or electricity, and it's following that very not predictable, because it's not predictable certainly in the early days, a well understood path for the adoption of new technologies.
Don't overthink it. The trade is simple. Bitcoin is the next arrow of progress, and that next arrow will continue in 2025. Join me and hundreds of other people who believe in freedom and the future of progress in America at the BitBlockBoom conference from April 3rd through April 6th in Dallas, Texas. You'll get to hear from some of the best speakers in Bitcoin, like Parker Lewis, Marty Bent, Guy Swan, Gary Leland, Bob Burnett, and me. Your ticket will give you access to exclusive workshops like learning how to buy your first Bitcoin or mining Bitcoin. And you'll get exclusive access to your favorite people in Bitcoin at parties like the Saturday Casino Night. Go to bitblockboom.com and enter the promo code BBB25. I'll repeat. Go to bitblockboom.com and enter the promo code BBB25. If you don't know what to get for Christmas or what to get somebody else, that'll be a great gift. I hope to see you all there. And with that, I'm super excited about 2025. What are some of the other stories that you're paying attention to in Bitcoin? I'd love to hear in the comments. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.